The garage smelled like motor oil and broken dreams. I was under the hood of my '98 Mustang when I heard my wife Sarah arguing with her sister Jessica in the kitchen above. Their voices carried through the thin floor like poison seeping through wood. "If he's that sick, he'll just drag you down." Jessica's shrill voice cut through the night air. "You're still young, Sarah. You deserve better than some guy who can't even keep up anymore." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I froze, wrench in hand. 3 weeks ago, Dr. Martinez had delivered the news that would change everything. Early-onset Parkinson's disease at 34. The tremors were barely noticeable now, but they'd get worse. Much worse. Sarah's response was barely a whisper, but I caught every devastating word. "I know. I can't be his nurse for the next 40 years. My hands started shaking. Not from the disease this time, but from pure rage. I'd been married to Sarah for 6 years, supported her through nursing school, paid off her student loans, and this was my reward, a death sentence delivered by my own wife and her entitled sister. I climbed out from under the car and wiped my hands on an old rag. Time to crash this little pity party. "Evening, ladies," I said, stepping into the kitchen. Both women jumped like they'd been caught stealing. "Don't mind me, just grabbing a beer. Please, continue discussing my inevitable decline." Sarah's face went white. "Tom, we weren't what? Planning my funeral? Discussing which nursing home has the best rates?" I popped open a Budweiser and leaned against the counter. "Jessica, always a pleasure. How's that bankruptcy working out for you?" Jessica's face turned red. She'd lost her house last year after her husband left, and now she was living in our guest room rent-free. "At least I don't have one foot in the grave." "No, you just have both feet in my house, eating my food and poisoning my wife against me." I took a long sip of beer. "Tell me, what's your exit strategy here? Sarah dumps the sick husband and you two ride off into the sunset together?" "Tom, stop it," Sarah said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Stop what? Asking reasonable questions? Like why my wife is taking marriage advice from someone who couldn't keep her own husband interested for 5 years." Jessica stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. "You're an asshole, Tom. You always have been." "Maybe, but I'm an asshole who pays the bills." I finished my beer and set the empty bottle on the counter with a sharp click. "Sarah, we need to talk. Alone." Jessica grabbed her purse. "I'm going to stay at Mom's tonight. Sarah, call me if you need anything." After she left, Sarah and I stood in our kitchen like strangers. The woman I'd loved for 8 years looked at me like I was already dead. "How long have you been planning this?" I asked. "Planning what?" "Don't play dumb. How long have you been looking for an exit strategy?" Sarah's shoulders sagged. "Tom, I'm 29 years old. I can't spend the rest of my life watching you deteriorate." "Sickness and health, remember? We said those words in front of 300 people. That was before we knew what sickness meant." Her voice was cold, clinical. "I won't be trapped in a marriage that's just waiting for you to die." The words hit like a physical blow. "So what's the plan? Divorce? Abandonment? Or are you just going to slowly poison me and collect the life insurance?" "I want a separation," she said quietly. "I've already talked to a lawyer." Of course she had. "Let me guess, Jessica recommended him?" "This isn't about Jessica. This is about us. About what's left of us." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. What's left of us is a woman who promised to love me forever and a man stupid enough to believe her. Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but I was done being moved by her emotions. "I need you to move out," she said. "I can't do this anymore." "This is my house, Sarah. I bought it, I pay for it, and my name is on the deed." "Then I'll move out. Jessica and I found an apartment downtown. How convenient. The dynamic duo rides again." I headed toward the garage, then stopped. "You know what the funny thing is? I actually thought you loved me. I did love you." Past tense. Got it. I looked back at her one more time. "You're making a mistake, Sarah. A big one." "Maybe, but it's my mistake to make." 3 days later, I came home from work to find half the furniture gone and a note on the kitchen counter. "I'm sorry it had to end this way. I hope you understand someday." I crumpled up the note and threw it in the trash. Understanding was the last thing on my mind. The next few weeks were a blur of legal papers and awkward encounters. Sarah had hired David Chen, a divorce attorney with a reputation for bleeding men dry. My lawyer, Mike Rodriguez, was good but expensive. The bills were piling up faster than I could pay them. The worst part wasn't the money, it was watching our mutual friends choose sides. One by one, they started avoiding me. Sarah had gotten to them first, spinning her tale of the sick husband who'd become impossible to live with. It started with Bill and Jennifer, our closest couple friends. We'd spent countless weekends together, barbecuing and playing cards. When I called Bill to grab a beer, his response was ice cold. "I don't think that's a good idea, Tom. Sarah told us about your situation. We think it's best if we stay neutral." "Neutral? Bill, we've been friends for 10 years. "I know, but this is complicated. Sarah's really hurt, and Jennifer thinks..." "Jennifer thinks what?" "That maybe you should focus on getting better instead of trying to drag everyone into your drama." The line went dead. Just like that, a decade of friendship was over. Next came our poker group. 5 guys who'd been meeting every Thursday for 3 years. When Thursday rolled around, I showed up at Dave's house like always. The conversation stopped when I walked in. "Hey, Tom," Dave said, not meeting my eyes. "We need to talk." The other guys, Steve, Marcus, and Paul, suddenly found their beer bottles fascinating. "Let me guess," I said. "Sarah got to you too." "It's not like that, man. And we just think maybe you should take a break. Work on yourself." "Work on myself? What the hell does that mean?" Marcus finally looked up. "Come on, Tom. You've been angry lately. Really angry. It's making everyone uncomfortable." "I'm getting divorced by a wife who can't handle a little adversity, and you're worried about me being angry? See? Right there. That attitude." Steve shook his head. "Sarah said you've been impossible to live with since your diagnosis." "And you believe her?" "We believe our eyes," Paul said. "You're not the same guy anymore." I looked around the table at these men I'd considered brothers. "You're right. I'm not the same guy. The old Tom would have let people walk all over him. The new Tom fights back." "Maybe that's the problem," Dave said. I stood up and grabbed my jacket. "You know what the real problem is? You're all cowards. Sarah tells you a sob story, and you abandon a friend without even hearing his side." "Tom, wait," Marcus started. "No, I'm done waiting. I'm done explaining myself to people who've already made up their minds." I headed for the door. "Enjoy your poker game, boys. Hope Sarah's approval keeps you warm at night." I slammed the door behind me and sat in my truck for 10 minutes, hands shaking with rage. Not from the Parkinsons this time, from pure, undiluted fury. That's when I decided to stop playing defense and start playing offense. The plan came to me over the next few days, piece by piece. Sarah thought she was so smart, turning everyone against me, but she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. I started with social media. Sarah had always been obsessed with her online image, posting carefully curated photos of our perfect life. Now she was posting about her new beginning and finding herself. The comments were full of support from friends who had no idea what really happened, so I decided to tell them. I created a simple post with a photo of our wedding day. 6 years ago, this woman promised to love me in sickness and in health. 3 weeks after my Parkinson's diagnosis, she filed for divorce. Just wanted everyone to know what "till death do us part" means to some people. The response was immediate and explosive. Within hours, I had dozens of comments and private messages. Some people were supportive, others thought I was being vindictive, but everyone was talking about it. Sarah called me that night, screaming, "How dare you? You made me look like a monster." "I didn't make you look like anything. I just told the truth." "That's not the whole story, and you know it." "Then tell your side. I'm sure everyone would love to hear how taking care of a sick husband is just too much work for a modern woman." She hung up on me, but I wasn't done, not even close. Next, I went after the friends who'd abandoned me. I knew things about all of them, secrets shared during late-night conversations, confessions made after too many beers. It was time to use that knowledge. I started with Bill and Jennifer. Bill had been having an affair with his secretary for 6 months. I knew because he'd drunkenly confessed it to me during a fishing trip. Jennifer had no idea. I sent her a simple text. "Ask Bill about his secretary, Lisa. Ask him about the hotel receipts he's been hiding." 2 days later, Bill called me, furious. "You son of a bitch!" Jennifer threw me out. Funny how that works, isn't it? One day you're married, the next day you're homeless. At least you're not sick, though. That would really be terrible. "This is insane, Tom. We were trying to help you." "Help me? By abandoning me when I needed friends most? That's an interesting definition of help." "You're destroying people's lives." "No, Bill. I'm just revealing the truth. You destroyed your own life when you decided to cheat on your wife." I hung up and immediately felt better than I had in weeks. The poker group was next. I had dirt on all of them, collected over 3 years of Thursday night confessions. Steve was embezzling money from his construction company. Marcus had been lying about his military service. He'd never been deployed, despite the stories he told. Paul was secretly gay and had been meeting men online while married to his wife of 15 years. I didn't expose them all at once. That would have been too obvious. Instead, I planted seeds. An anonymous tip to Steve's business partner about irregularities in the books. A casual mention to Marcus's wife about inconsistencies in his war stories. A printout of Paul's dating profile left where his wife would find it. One by one, their perfect lives started crumbling, and one by one, they figured out who was behind it. The confrontation happened on a Thursday night. I was having dinner at Murphy's bar when they walked in, all four of them, looking like an angry mob. "We need to talk," Dave said, sliding into the booth across from me. The others flanked him like bodyguards. The whole restaurant could feel the tension. "Gentlemen," I said, not looking up from my burger. "How's everyone doing? Steve, how's the investigation going? Marcus, did you ever find your discharge papers? Paul, how's married life?" "You bastard," Paul hissed. "My wife left me. She took the kids." "That's terrible. Maybe you should have thought about that before you started trolling for strange dick on Grindr." Steve leaned forward. "You're going to destroy us all, aren't you?" "I'm not destroying anything. I'm just evening the playing field." I took a bite of my burger. "You all chose Sarah's side without hearing mine. Now you get to experience what it feels like when people you trust turn on you." "This is psychotic," Marcus said. "We were your friends." "Were, past tense, just like Sarah loved me, past tense." I wiped my mouth with a napkin. Funny how quickly past tense becomes present reality. Dave tried a different approach. "Tom, we get it. You're angry. But this has to stop. You're hurting innocent people." "Innocent?" I laughed. "Steve's been stealing money for 2 years. Marcus has been lying about his service record since the day we met him. Paul's been living a lie his entire adult life. And you, Dave, well, let's just say your wife would be very interested to know about your gambling problem and the $15,000 you owe to Tony Marconi." Dave's face went white. "How did you know about that? Because we used to be friends, remember? Friends share secrets. They trust each other. They support each other through difficult times." I stood up and threw a 20 on the table. "Too bad none of you remember what friendship actually means." "Tom, wait," Steve said desperately. "What do you want? Money? We can pay you." "I don't want your money, Steve. I want you to understand what betrayal feels like. I want you to know what it's like when people you love decide you're not worth the trouble anymore." I walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. "Oh, and Dave, Tony's looking for you. Something about missed payments. You might want to handle that before he handles you." I left them sitting there, 4 men whose lives I'd systematically destroyed, just like they'd helped destroy mine. But I still wasn't finished. The best was yet to come. Sarah's divorce lawyer had been playing hardball, demanding alimony and half of everything I owned, but I'd been playing chess while he was playing checkers. 3 months before Sarah left, I'd started moving assets. Not illegally, I'm not stupid, but creatively. I'd transferred money to accounts she didn't know about, invested in properties under my business name, and converted liquid assets into things that were harder to value. When the final divorce hearing arrived, Sarah's smug confidence evaporated quickly. "Your Honor," my lawyer said, "my client is willing to offer a settlement of $50,000 and the house, provided Mrs. Patterson waives all claims to alimony." Sarah's lawyer looked confused. "Your Honor, our financial disclosure shows assets worth over $400,000. "That was before Mr. Patterson's medical expenses and the costs associated with modifying his life for his condition," my lawyer replied smoothly. "The current liquid assets are quite limited." It was all legal. The medical expenses were real, even if they weren't as extensive as we made them seem. The business investments were legitimate, even if they were structured to minimize my apparent net worth. Sarah stared at me across the courtroom, finally understanding that she'd been outmaneuvered. "50,000?" she whispered to her lawyer. "That's it?" "We can fight it," he whispered back, "but it could take years and cost more than you'd recover." She took the deal. She had to. Jessica had been feeding her fantasies about taking me for everything I was worth, but reality had just crashed their party. After the papers were signed, Sarah approached me in the courthouse hallway. "You planned this," she said. "All of it." I planned to protect myself from a wife who would abandon me the moment things got difficult. Turns out I was right to do so. "I loved you, Tom. I really did." "No, you loved the healthy version of me, the version that could take care of you forever without ever needing anything in return." I adjusted my tie. "The good news is, you're free now. Free to find someone who'll never get sick, never need help, never be anything less than perfect." "It doesn't have to end like this." "Yes, it does. You made sure of that the night you and Jessica decided I wasn't worth the trouble." I walked away, leaving her standing there with her lawyer and her sister, 3 people who'd thought they were so much smarter than me. 6 months later, I was settling into my new life quite nicely. The Parkinson's was manageable with medication, and I'd found a support group full of people who understood what real commitment meant. I'd also started dating again. Her name was Linda, and she was a widow whose husband had died of cancer after a long battle. She'd stayed by his side through everything, just like a real partner should. We were having dinner at the same restaurant where I'd confronted my former friends when Sarah walked in with Jessica. They looked tired, older somehow. The stress of the past year had aged them both. Sarah saw me and hesitated, then walked over to our table. "Tom," she said quietly. "How are you?" "I'm well, thank you. Sarah, this is Linda. Linda, this is my ex-wife, Sarah." Linda smiled politely. "Nice to meet you." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Tom, I've been thinking—" "That's dangerous," I interrupted. "Thinking. You should be careful with that." "I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. I was scared and selfish, and I threw away the best thing in my life." Linda looked uncomfortable. I reached over and squeezed her hand reassuringly. "Sarah, you didn't throw anything away. You made a choice. You chose your comfort over our marriage. You chose your sister's advice over your husband's needs. You chose to believe that love is conditional." I stood up. "The only mistake you made was thinking I'd still be here when you finally figured out what you'd lost." "Please," she whispered. "Can we talk? Privately?" "No." We said everything we needed to say in divorce court. I helped Linda up from her chair. "Enjoy your evening, Sarah. I hope you find what you're looking for." As we walked away, I heard Jessica hissing at Sarah. "I told you this was a bad idea. He's moved on." Yes, I had moved on, but not before making sure that everyone who'd betrayed me understood the consequences of their choices. The final chapter of my revenge came a year later at our mutual friend's annual Christmas party. I almost didn't go, but Linda convinced me it would be good to show everyone how well I was doing. The party was awkward from the moment we arrived. Bill was there alone. His divorce had been finalized months ago. Steve was facing criminal charges for embezzlement. Marcus had been exposed as a fraud and lost his job at the Veterans Organization. Paul was living in a studio apartment, paying child support and alimony to the wife he'd deceived for years. Dave had managed to pay off his gambling debts, but barely. He looked like he'd aged 10 years. They all watched me nervously as I mingled with the other guests, Linda on my arm, both of us clearly happy and healthy. The host, Jerry, pulled me aside at one point. "Tom, I have to ask, what happened with those guys? They all claim you ruined their lives." "I didn't ruin anything, Jerry. I just revealed who they really were. The ruins were already there, hidden under years of lies and fake friendship. But still, Jerry, when I got sick, every one of those men abandoned me. They chose my ex-wife's version of events over our years of friendship. They decided I wasn't worth the trouble of staying loyal to." I sipped my wine. All I did was show them what disloyalty looks like from the other side. Near the end of the evening, Sarah showed up. She looked terrible, thin, pale, desperate. She made a beeline for me. "Tom, please, I need to talk to you." "There's nothing to talk about, Sarah." "Yes, there is. I'm pregnant." The room seemed to go quiet around us. Linda's hand tightened on my arm. "Congratulations," I said. "Who's the father?" Sarah's face crumpled. "I don't know. I've made some bad choices since our divorce." "I'm sorry to hear that, but I fail to see what it has to do with me." "I need help, financial help. The baby is not my responsibility. You made that very clear when you decided you were too young to take care of me." "That was different." "No, it wasn't. You're asking me to take care of you and your child when you refuse to take care of me in sickness. You want me to be the man you divorced me for not being." Sarah was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "I was wrong. I know I was wrong, but I'm begging you." "You're begging the wrong person. You should be begging whatever man got you pregnant, or maybe Jessica can help you. After all, her advice worked out so well for you the first time." I turned to Linda. "Ready to go home?" She nodded, and we walked toward the door. Behind us, I could hear Sarah sobbing and someone trying to comfort her. As we reached the exit, I turned back one last time. The room was full of people whose lives I'd touched over the past 2 years. Some were friends, some were enemies, and some were casualties of war. But all of them understood one thing now. Actions have consequences. Betrayal has a price. And sometimes, the sick guy everyone thought they could push around turns out to be the strongest person in the room. Linda and I walked out into the cold December night, leaving behind the wreckage of my old life and the people who'd thought they could destroy me. They'd learned too late that I wasn't the victim in this story. I was the author.